Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the AntonioTalks talk show. I'm here with a great guest, someone I've admired for quite some time. When I used to work for Accenture, I was at a event which was the Candies, and it was the first time I saw you speak, and I was like mesmerised. I was like, this guy knows it. And I'm not just saying that, Johnny, because you're here.
You sure it wasn't the older guy, Jerry, you're thinking of?
Jerry's cool too. Jerry's cool too. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I have Johnny Campbell on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Antonio.
No, not at all. Thank you for coming on. I
Pleasure.
really do appreciate it. I feel really, you know what? I feel like a bit starstruck.
Get to know me better, you won't be so fucking star-struck. Trust me. There's less stardom than you'd imagine there.
Johnny Campbell from Social Talent. I feel a bit like, I don't know, I just feel a bit weird about it.
Well, you're going to make me get all bashful and embarrassed here. So
it's really great to have you on, Johnny, honestly.
Thank you.
And I know you're just a flying visit here into London. So I suppose before we get into that, what I'd like to know is, tell everyone about your story. What got you to this moment today, drinking Heineken? Heineken, we're still looking for sponsorship. What got you to this moment today?
So I started in recruiting in an agency in Dublin back in '98, right? So 20 years ago. And after I did 10 years of agency recruitment, ended up in the Caribbean running a recruitment agency, came back to Ireland, set up an agency with a buddy of mine.
Step back for a second. In the Caribbean?
Yeah, so I lived on, so it was my address was 7 Mile Beach, which was technically a 6 mile long beach in the Caribbean, where every morning I'd get up and I'd swim in 25 centigrade water with my dogs and go for a run as the sun rose and then head off to work. And every weekend I'd do a dive, go have a barbecue, rent a catamaran and hang out with my mates. It was a pretty awesome life.
Amazing. What was the recruitment market like in the Caribbean? Was you serving that area or was you serving in elsewhere?
So I was hiring people to work in Cayman, I was working for what was the largest agency on the island, right? But you got to remember, the Cayman Islands is like 55,000 people. It's a small town, right? So it's like the biggest agency in a small town. And you got to work on everything. So I did accountancy recruitment before that, but I had to find people who could do filing, butchers, accountants, lawyers, admin people, you name it. We did temp and perm business, so we did about 120 temps on our books, just doing everything you could imagine.
Wow.
You get a call on Thursday from a bank going, we need somebody to move crap next week. 3 bodies on Monday morning. You're like, how do I get 3 bodies?
I thought you said move 3 bodies on.
Maybe had a couple of that. So it was a real kind of amazing experience, and we had a computer training company in there as well. It was just a crazy business, and I worked for some brilliant people there. So it was a really great lifestyle. We got pregnant. We decided in our infinite wisdom in 2008 to move back to Ireland.
Amazing.
And leave paradise where we didn't pay tax to a recession. So
that
was a lot of shits and giggles. So that was
it pre-recession just happening, or was it literally in the
middle?
Moved
home July 2008. Bear Stearns fell mid-September 2008, and our first child was born a week later.
Congratulations, though, for that.
Thank you. The number 4 is on its way now, Antonio.
Amazing.
So the story continues. But yeah, so we set up another. I had a plan to move home and set up a recruitment agency. Yeah. I pitched this idea to a buddy of mine who I met, an Irish guy in Cayman, and I sold him on a dream. I sent him an Excel spreadsheet, as you do, that showed lots of zeros on the right side of one that we'd make if we worked together, and he believed my crap. And then 6 months in, we realized that just wasn't going to happen. And if you remember, 2008 was when Facebook was beginning to break out of universities in the States. LinkedIn was barely a thing. Twitter was barely a thing, but it was starting. And kind of the recession plus that was beginning to change things. So we started realizing that to be a recruitment agency back then, you had to have a unique offering. You had to find candidates no one else had. So I started to figure out how to do this whole sourcing thing. I didn't know it was called that at the time. But find people from all these different social networks. And we figured out how to market on social media for job ads and this kind of stuff. And we did that through enormous trial and effort, right? And as we figured it out and began to turn our business around, we realized nobody was teaching people how to do this shit. And we realized there was probably a business in that. So we hedged and said either our agency at the time, it was a company called Select People, would be better than every other agency and grow because we did it differently, or more likely everyone else would figure out what we were doing and eventually do it. So we set up a second business, Social Talent, 8 years ago nearly, to basically to be a hedge, to be a company that would do that for recruitment companies and recruitment teams. And within a couple of years, we closed down the agency, put all our efforts into social talent. Then we realized online was the only way to scale it and would be a better learning experience. And we find ourselves, I guess, 2018, we're an enterprise software company. We're the largest provider of recruitment learning in the world. And if you had asked me 8 years ago, what are you trying to do? It wouldn't have been this.
Really?
This is what ended up being the need we think that the industry had. There was loads of people doing things for the industry, but nobody was pulling it all together. And what I mean by that is they weren't kind of going, well, there's so many new tools and ways of doing recruiting. How the fuck are we going to actually teach people to do this stuff and do it well and make sure they actually know how to deliver really good service to clients, candidates, hiring managers, whoever? And that's where we found ourselves almost by accident. And so we're a 70-person firm based out of Dublin, mainly sell to the US and UK, largest markets, trained 40, 50,000 recruiters around the world so far, tons of people using the enterprise software, and I find myself here on a September morning with you, Antonio.
Amazing, and it's a privilege to have you here. So let's go back a bit, and we'll talk about when you decided to close down the recruitment agency, and this was the focus. What was it? Why was it that you thought? Was it just because more money was coming from this, or you're enjoying this, or what was it? What changed that?
So what we did was my business partner is Vince, right? And myself and Vince are very different. So we decided Vince would continue running the agency. We had 4 people working for us at the time. And I would set up social talent. We had no one working for us. And 12 months later, almost to the day, the two businesses was around the same size, right? And the agency kind of paid my way for the first 3-4 months because we had no money coming in. Got a few customers. And actually, our model was to be consulting around social media at the time. And our pitch was, and we had a few agencies in our books, we'll manage your social media. We'll do all your posts, get your fans, as it was at the time, up and running on these different sites. And we kind of worked really hard at doing that. And after about 9 months, we realized it didn't work, right? Outsourcing at the time, everything to do with all your recruiting didn't work, right? And actually, one of the biggest ways to use social at the time as a way to try and turn around your recruiting was to find people directly on social, not just build networks and communities. So we realized the best people were the recruiters, and we said, how do we empower them to do it? By giving them, some specialist advice, etc. But we created this training product, and we started training people. We didn't even have a name for the training course. We didn't even have an exam, and that became the most popular product within weeks. So by the end of the first year, that's what everyone wanted. We sacked all of our consultancy clients and went, fuck it, that's not what they want. We offered them some free training as a way to bridge the gap. We'll train your guys up to do it. And we went hell for leather on, let's be the people who train the world how to do this really well in recruiting. So that kind of, it wasn't that the agency was going to fail. It was actually doing quite fine.
Yeah.
But it was doing quite fine like every other agency was. And it would grow a person here and a person there. And we just felt that the exciting idea we had, that we were passionate about, wasn't about doing that agency. It was about doing this, what we thought was a really impactful thing for the industry.
Do you think it was because it was different? Do you think it was because as you said, it's impactful, but was it because that what you were about to embark on, or what you're embarking on, was something that was so different to what anyone was doing? Is that why? Or?
It was, so I'll be honest with you, right? Day one, it was a case of, this is a classic reason why entrepreneurs often set up companies. We needed this service back in 2008, and it did not exist. So we said, we should create this service because companies like us need it. And it was literally as simple as that, right? And it then evolved into, hang on a second, you can have impact. And for us, it's always been important. Yeah, you got to make money, you got to pay your bills and all that kind of wonderful stuff. But to be able to influence the hiring of thousands of companies who make millions of hires, like an individual who's just recruiting can never achieve that by herself.
Of course.
You have to do it through other people. And that was the kind of scale, my first introduction to this concept of how do you scale in a dramatic fashion what you're doing and the impact of what you're doing. And that then was the hook that made all the other decisions for us.
Amazing. So do you think social has changed? So social sourcing, let's talk about that, right? Do you think it's changed as, if you're talking, you set this business up really when Facebook was becoming mainstream, as you said, really when, as you said, like LinkedIn weren't really taking off in 2010, it was really around 2013, would you say?
Maybe,
when it was. So has social sourcing changed since 2010, or is it still the same premise, or is it still the same? Is there still basic foundational elements to your sourcing strategy?
So if you take the sourcing side of social media, it I believe has changed, but the way a lot of recruiters treat it hasn't changed. So back in '09, you could reach out to, I was doing insurance recruiting, hiring reinsurance people, right? Underwriters, investment people, all this kind of weird stuff, right? The type of person you don't really expect to find on LinkedIn, even today, right? I don't expect to be responsive. And you'd get a reply from pretty much everybody, right? And you'd be trying to find email addresses and they'd come back to you because nobody else was cold call headhunting them as it is, like we were. So the difference today is that's saturated. Everyone expects a call. It's not a magic surprise anymore. You can't say somebody gave me your name. He's like, well, you found me on LinkedIn. Let's be honest here, right? But so you have to change the way you do it. You have to have a brand in the first place, have awareness, know how the game is played, chase them, follow up, find other ways of getting in touch with them, try and attract them to your brand, all this kind of wonderful stuff, right? The core of I find a name based on a keyword search and I reach out and get them to reply to me hasn't changed. You just got to wrap it in something a lot more sophisticated, which requires more specialism, more support, all those services. In fact, the services we had in '08 that we shut down are probably needed now, but weren't needed back then because it was the Wild Wild West. But there's still loads of recruiters, so many recruiters who just think, I just run a search and I send some messages and it all works out brilliantly. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, and so I want to get onto the brand piece in a moment because it's really important. But I think in many ways, what you guys set up originally was a growth hacking tool. Would you say that? Do you remember that was a way of growth hacking these social channels? So a way of just working out how to find the right people. And then, so there was the whole discover people. What was the content of the actual engaging side? And what does that look like today?
So day one, we had nothing. So we didn't, in the first, I'd say 2-3 years, I can't recall correctly, but we didn't have anything about engaging with talent, right? It was purely how do you find people, how do you do the search, and how do you market your jobs, and nothing else, because you kind of didn't have to work too hard to get engagement. But then when more people started learning how to search, and the scale went crazy, and everyone started doing this stuff, then the engagement thing became the differentiator, right? It used to be enough that you found somebody, because no one else could find them. Then everyone could find the same people. And then it became, who are you? How do you engage? And that became the key skill to have. And then when everyone got better at engagement to a degree, it became the brand piece you mentioned. Well, who is your brand and what did I think of you before you even reached out to
Values,
me? So it kind of moves in this iterative process where you have to kind of keep constantly ahead of the pack. And it was search was the advantage at the start. Engagement was the advantage number 2. And now it's brand or perception or the activation part, which is largely the thing now. But actually, that's probably beginning to wane, and they're moving on to a 4th stage.
Yeah, I think so. Let's get into the 4th stage actually, and what that looks like. I think it's more around than experience. So brand, I think they're obviously a sequence, but experience is probably because I can know about a brand and you can know about someone, but it's the experience that you give to that candidate or the experience that you give to a client, whatever your stakeholder is, right? So the experience today impacts the brand, would you say?
So I wouldn't use the word experience, I'd use the word trust. So you look at the kind of 4 stages of that over 10 years. Trust is the current stage. And it's driven by experience. Experience is something that drives trust. But if I reach out to a candidate on LinkedIn and I'm reaching out from a brand that's fairly well known, well, now the person is going to look at what is the reputation of my brand and what is the reputation of me as the representative of that brand, trusting their career with me or advice with me. So then it becomes around, if I'm, and trust and brand are closely related, okay, from a positive point of view, and they both have a sister called awareness. And awareness by itself typically drives brand and drives trust. If I see
that's
Antonio,
quite shallow though, because I think trust, because awareness can be shallow, right? Or brand can be shallow. So I can presume that someone is the way they are because of the way they portray themselves. But that's quite a shallow way of thinking. Would you agree?
But Danny Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for his work on the way we make decisions, which showed and demonstrated that at a very base level, all of us, when we're exposed to something that's familiar, we go in with the basis of trust initially. and positivity. So it may be shallow, but it's how our brains are wired, right? And our brains are wired to, if I see Antonio's face constantly on my LinkedIn stream, and then Antonio reaches out to me,
Exactly.
I haven't even connected in my brain that I know this name, but I get a phone call, Antonio, I recognize the voice, I go, oh, that's the guy from my stream. And instantly I'm immediately trustful of you, not distrustful and not even neutral, because I have awareness of you. Now, you can fuck it all up, right? You can say something crazy in your first sentence and then it's all gone. But if you don't mess it up, and this is the crazy thing, if you just have awareness and you don't fuck up, you'll get trust. And it's amazing how many people mess that up and they can't even do that right? But you imagine if you have awareness, you basically don't fuck up and you do something impactful like have a great experience. That's gold.
It's a recipe, isn't it?
And it's not hard.
No. So why do people, so many recruiters struggle then? Like, if it's not hard, why is this such an issue? Because I think you have to isolate those things, right?
Yeah.
So let's isolate awareness side, which is basically me as a recruiter going online and pumping out, content, but not the traditional way of just sharing a link, like which most people think, oh, I just shared, Time Inc. or an Inc. Link on recruiting or whatever. I think it's more around that as you said, in order to build trust, people need to be able to put their own face out there, and they feel very uncomfortable doing that. If you look at the younger generations, how much they use Instagram, say how much they're so savvy with video, Snapchat, this, that, and the other. Those recruiters coming through the lines now are going to feel much more comfortable. And I don't know if you're observing that, but today people feel very uncomfortable posting. So why is that?
So the tools are less relevant, right? My good friend Bill Borman had a fantastic quote many years ago. Many good quotes you get from Bill, typically with a few points. He said, the first stage to being a thought leader is to have a thought. And what he was kind of get at was that you can't just post shit online, right? You have to add value to the process. So if I'm looking at you and you're posting videos and everything else, and really you're just showing me somebody else's stuff without any commentary or opinion by yourself, you don't add value, and therefore you're forgotten instantly. So the great people add value, right? And the brilliant people add value and know how to use the tools. But it starts with that, how do you add value? And the add value could be just, hey, I found this article. I think it's really relevant to recruiting because. That's enough. That will drive a whole conversation, and that begins to send you another thought leadership.
Piece, yeah.
Having a thought, right? Yeah. And if you're earlier in your career, you may not feel confident in your experience to say, well, I do have a thought, but I might look like an idiot if I say this, right? And typically, if you're 10 years in your career, you become overly confident and you still sound like an idiot, but you don't care anymore. Yeah. So you do say it, right? But either way, you put it out there and you're okay with doing that. And I did a session, I remember a year ago, with a bunch of recruiters. When LinkedIn first launched video last summer, actually. And I was saying, you got to share videos on LinkedIn, right? This is the holy grail. It's better than any other medium. And it's free at the moment. And there's very little competition and you'll get known. And people are like, well, what I say? And I was like, literally anything. Like stage one, say something. It can be crap, right? In fact,
and it usually is crap the first time you start posting video, right? The first shit I was posting, it was shit.
Like, but you know what? You started, right?
Yeah.
And then 10 posts in, you're like, I have it now, and I don't like post 1. 100 posts in, you're like, Jesus, post 10 was awful.
Yeah.
You'll always get better, right? But people kind of go, they want to be you at post 100 overnight. And that's not how it works. You have to fail lots of times.
Yeah.
But the beauty of social media and using it as an advertising or branding tool is that it's throwaway, has a shelf life of less than 24 hours. So like this video watched on LinkedIn, if chances are 80% of people will see it in the first 12 hours, 10% in the next 12 hours, and then the rest over a few days and then never seen again.
And they'll forget about it.
Forget about it, right? But it's how do you have impact in that short period of time? And if it's shit, don't worry, it's forgotten about, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets forgotten about. So you get to go again tomorrow and try again. So it's almost that willingness to fail regularly, which, you know what, when you're doing recruitment long enough, right, you fail all the time. You make offers, you call clients, you call candidates, you deal with people, you get rejection. You know, the best way to get into recruitment is just go through an intensive 2 weeks of rejection.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're an ugly girl or guy and you've gone through life with rejection, you're probably going to nail it in recruitment. You know, I feel sorry for these pretty fantastic, fabulous people from great backgrounds who get into recruitment. They've never heard the word no. They are going to struggle, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get super comfortable with no. You've got to revel in the no. When you revel in the no, as in the negative, you don't really care as much about this stuff. You don't you're willing to take risks
Yeah.
because you're okay with getting no's or people dissing you as you go along.
You're okay. That's it. You're okay. I mean, it still doesn't feel nice,
No.
and you never ever are gonna. It's like because I do mainly LBD here at Recruited, right? So even when someone says a no to me, I'm like, well, why? I'm like, but I don't obviously respond or whatever, or they'll tell me that no, this isn't something we're interested in. No, thanks or whatever. I still feel the same I did when I was 8 years ago, being a recruiter. I still feel the exact same as it felt back then, which is interesting, right? So you're never ever gonna. I don't think you're ever gonna get over the fact that no. I don't think no's ever gonna feel nice. But
like at this point in this interview, if people are still watching or listening, there's going to be a bunch of them going, he's shit and he's shit, they're assholes, and they're going to comment, right? And that's going to hurt you and it's going to hurt me, right? But we're going to get over it, right? It's still going to sting, because it always stings. But the key is to get back up and go, fuck it. But not just that, to go, did he have a point, right? Maybe I was a bit of an arsehole. Maybe I did say something wrong. So the key is not to just dismiss negativity and criticism, because sometimes there's validity in what people are saying. The really good people go, you know what, they had a point, right?
How much criticism do you think you get online?
I get a bit. On balance, 95% of it's positive, right? Like, most people in the world are just good and nice, right? The thing is, you will notice the negative stuff more than the nice stuff, right? So no matter who you are, most people are actually quite positive and encouraging, right? There's always the trolls and the people who say negative stuff, the haters, right? They'll slag off your business model, your idea, your whatever. They'll go, look at that upstart, look at that business trying to do that. And you just got to shrug it off and go, I'm just going to keep my head down. Most of the people who are negative have never tried.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing is though, if someone baits me, I'm too much of a, like, I just have to go after them. I don't know why. It's who I am. But you have to be honest with who you are, right? So I kind of feel like, that. But there is a lot of. I think my perception of social is that it's a great tool and it's served me so well, right? However, my perception of how the way in which it's going, particularly like I think maybe LinkedIn, and this is just possibly because maybe that's where the biggest following is, right? But on LinkedIn, I feel like it's the digital version of the workplace ego. It's the digital version of my let's just, for want of better words, my balls are bigger than your balls. Do you know what I mean? That's the digital version. I think it's the most hostile environment. Would you agree with that? Or would you say that it's probably not?
I have seen that, right? But not in anything I've posted or what I see in my stream, right? I'll give you an example. I do, you may have seen, I do these things called Ninja Diaries, right?
Love it.
Thank you. They're 60-second throwaway things, right? I got inspired by watching YouTubers on a BA flight where they had a 30-minute documentary about YouTubers, and they were all doing 30-second and 60-second throwaway stuff about nothing, as opposed to 30-minute long videos, which I was doing at the time. I thought, I should try that. And like, it doesn't have to be about much, it's just an insight into your life. And if nobody wants to watch it, fine, right? So I started doing these things, and they're throwaway, and they started really catching. One I did over the summer, I had the largest views of one of these types. I got about 70 or 80,000 views. And it was me bringing my son to a conference and hanging around London for the day, right? Nothing to it. Like, we went to Hamleys, we went to Lego Stories.
That's 9. A nice bit of content, do you know what I mean?
It was just like, I was like, he was a Greek dad, can I make a Ninja Diary with you? And I wasn't like trying to market out my son to get views. I was like, yeah, cool. He wanted to be part of it and say some stuff. And he said some funny lines. It was good fun. And that was just nice. I had so many nice comments. Really nice comments. And then other people I know who started showing their kid at work the next week, and they filmed it as well. And back to the point of, generally, people are good, people are nice, and people are supportive, right? You get the haters. And I know there's people who go, I fucking hate those Ninja Diaries. Like, what's he doing? He's an asshole about that. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
I want to hear what they have to say and what would they like instead. But people are generally nice. And
I agree.
I don't think LinkedIn has all the haters, but you know what? There's certain content that's going to attract the haters.
Yeah.
Like putting up a shit job ad.
Yeah.
For 30 seconds, or putting up a comment a post that doesn't add value. Like, I'm not trying to add educational value on Ninja Diaries. I'm just kind of going, it's a window into a life if you want it, right? And there's no strings attached. I'm not selling you anything at the end of it, right? When somebody makes a video that's overtly selling them something and they put it on LinkedIn as content, then people get pissed off, and you're going to get the wrath of that work ego you talked about.
Do you think though, and I'm literally just thinking about where you are in terms of your career and your achievements, do you feel like for you, you'd get less hate because you've proven, like you've done it, like you've gone through the mice. No one can come to you and go, well, Johnny, your idea is shit, because it's clearly not. It's a very successful business. Do you know what I'm saying? So you can't get that hate. Whereas if someone wants to start something new, and this is probably the fear in most people, is that confidence level, right? Someone wants to start something new, they're fearful of doing that because of the hostility that they could get, particularly in an ego-driven environment such as recruitment.
So
right?
You mentioned, Antonio, about taking the bait, right? And you can't resist it. Your personality, you got to be yourself, right? I have a rule on social media, online in general, that I've had from day one, which is don't spread hate or negativity. And what I mean by that is, if that somebody does something stupid, a company does something stupid, a product is terrible, LinkedIn changes a feature that everyone hates, I just won't comment or write anything about that.
Yeah.
So often, if you want to understand what I'm thinking, what I'm not talking about is what I generally think is negative or bad.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see the value. I understand it's clickbait, gets loads of views, reads, all that kind of stuff. When you speak negatively and you diss somebody, or you talk about how bad something's done or what a disaster it was, right? I just don't subscribe to being part of that negative machine. I just think it doesn't add value to the world. It gets likes, it gets plays, it gets clicks, it gets comments, but nobody comes out on top. So I hope, right, that I don't get my share of negative stuff, because I don't engage in those types of things. I'm never part of that conversation. I like to think, of no evidence for this, I like to think that's why I get less of the negative stuff. Maybe it's, and your point about success is relative. Maybe I actually have had a shit career compared to what I should have had if I did something else or made different choices. I always ask that of myself, right? And I'm never happy about where I am. I need to go somewhere else. So I always look back at that. And there's tons of people, most people are more successful than I have been. So you can always discount that reason. But I think it is down to, and I'm not a religious person, don't believe in the concept of karma in its purest sense, but I believe in, you can live with yourself if you do good and you're not negative about other people. And you're less likely to attract the negative people.
Absolutely. And I agree with that, right? So I totally get that, But because if you take Gerbs, for instance, we'll just, Gerbs, be honest with us. What was your perception, Gerbs, of me prior to knowing me?
I didn't like you.
Right? And now you know me. Do I ever spread hate? So it's interesting because I'm all about karma, right? I'm all about be good to people. That's it. Be good and help people. However, this is why I was mentioning the shallow piece earlier around social, because I think that it can be shallow because people look at me and they'll probably think, what a little prick. All I'm doing is just running a business every day. That's my video. It's just running a business every day. I'm not doing anything, not hurting anyone, nothing. Yep. So it's interesting that's why I feel like social is shallow. But let's go to the other side, where it can be used to build a successful brand. And I want to ask you, so I remember looking, we've got 5 minutes, by the way. I remember looking at your, so it was your Twitter channel a couple of years back, and it was, your handle was Social Talent, and it was your Twitter channel.
It was me, actually, at the time, yeah.
And so when did you make that shift?
So the people who worked in our organization handling marketing and stuff for years were like, give up Social Talent. You're back to the company. You can no longer be Johnny Campbell is Social Talent. And I used to always fight back with the argument of, I can't remember his name, Pete, the guy who was founded Mashable, English guy, Pete.
I don't know. I
can't remember his name, right? So he always, Mashable was him.
Right.
Right. And eventually he fucking gave it over, right? And said, right, I got to give it back to the brand. He sold the business. But I kind of realized that there were opinions I had as a person that needed to just be associated with the brand.
And I love that you're on Vine, by the way. I love that you were on Vine. It was awesome.
Try everything. It's like, give it a go, Yeah. What works. But I needed to have a space where it was my opinion, not the company's opinion. And I've always, as a business owner, the business is an entity and I'm a person. And I am not the entity. And the entity is not me. They're separate. And I happen to be one of the co-owners of the entity. But that's not the same thing. And they can have different personalities. We service largely enterprise and mid-sized large companies. And they have an expectation of what a brand should be. And that may sometimes conflict with my personal opinions. They need to be separate, right?
Absolutely.
So you know what the hardest thing was, right? And this is fucking ego. I had to give up all my followers.
I know, I was going to say that.
Go to an account that had actually my name and had like 3 followers on day one. And that was like, it's sad to say this, but that was my biggest issue.
I get it, but the interesting thing, the strategy was great. Now, obviously, it wasn't a strategy to you because, you just set up Social Talent Johnny Campbell. The strategy was great, though, because it was your personal brand. And your personal brand was followed. And they wanted to follow Social Talent, no doubt. But do you think if you'd have gone back and started just Social Talent and Johnny Campbell, separately, do you think Social Talent would have had the following that it has today on, on Twitter? Let's isolate that, right?
So not the way that we did it.
Yeah.
So, one of the challenges of our business has actually been separating the company brand from my personal brand, right? So for a few years it was just Johnny Campbell and it happened to be called Social Talent. And then it became about how do we basically develop a product and a platform that isn't the Johnny Campbell on video show. And we've got there, right? So I remember the first couple of big customers that signed up for our platform who never knew who the hell I was. That was a really proud moment because it was like we've managed to basically not sell a personal brand. We sold a solution that they actually wanted to buy, and they've never even heard of this other person. So that's been escalating over the years away. Just Social Talent is its own thing. I happen to be the CEO and co-founder, but they don't have to be the same thing anymore.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what my strategy is, to separate myself from Recruited and have Recruited, because these guys are far more talented than I am, and so I want them to run Recruited in many senses.
And it's, don't separate, it's just put a separation between.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. Right? Separate means you're walking away. You can't do that.
No.
But you got to put a separation between them.
Exactly.
You're
so
still
it's
highly
not,
associated.
Yeah, that's it. So this is not Antonio's company, it's Recruited. That's it.
Yeah,
That's the key thing. So I think that was. When I noticed that, I was like, that's an interesting move, and I can imagine that it was a difficult thing for you to do.
It's funny because we actually filmed a bit of content with a good friend of mine, Steve Ward. I don't even know Steve Ward. Steve has been well known in the recruitment scene in the UK for a long time, and Steve's kind of started this concept about a year ago, and he filmed it for our training, which was around that if you're for recruitment agencies. His point was that if you're a recruitment agency under, let's say, a couple hundred people, really, it isn't about getting all your consultants online and getting them to have a personal brand. You, as a business owner with less than 200 staff, the owner needs to be the brand. And even if you're not comfortable with social, tough shit, right? You need to be that personality, because you probably grew it because of your opinions and everything else, and that it's actually a strength of smaller businesses to have the owner personality. So actually, there are businesses who did the opposite of you. They started with the company first and never associated with the brand, and they struggle in the world of social.
Yeah.
Because brands that don't have a person behind them are usually unsuccessful.
Yeah.
You have to have that personification of the brand in a human being to really make it successful, to have a voice.
Well, we like faces, don't we?
Yeah,
we like faces. We like someone you can. And I like to think that our story, and we're only a year old, right? A year-old company. We've done well for a year, great. But our story is at the moment building that startup, right? So it's a start. We're building it. That's what we're doing. We're building. And so I think that's probably what makes the people want to observe what Recruited are doing at the moment. But ideally, in my ideal world, I'd love to get to a point where Recruited is the emblem in many ways, and Recruited is its own sort of entity, as you said, so rightly said. Awesome, mate. I've got so many more questions. I've actually only not even scratched the surface right now, which is really annoying. But I know that you've got to go and do something. So really great to have you on board. Come back. What we'll do is we'll have a further chat. Allocate 2 hours to that time.
We'll have less of a general chat where people are going, where are these going with this?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on here? Hopefully.
No, but this is what the show is. We just go wherever the route goes. Exactly.
But I think what you're talking about. If I can kind of close with your story and what you're trying to do. Any recruiter trying to break out on their own, right? And this year, 2018, has seen the largest number of recruitment agencies started up and registered in the UK in history, right? So there's loads of consultants or in-house recruiters going, I can do this myself, right? And different services and recruitment businesses. This is the year people are doing it. And the model that they should follow is what you guys are doing, which is to kind of have the gumption to get out there and put your own personal brand out there, to accept the criticism, to try and fail, and to own that personal brand, knowing that you'll have to separate it, it's fine. But, hopefully just in that people can go, you know what? If they do think negatively of what you've done in the past of the show, I think they should come on, sit down and have a chat with you. I think they'll be disarmed and enjoy the experience. And what I've learned is there is more to gain from hearing what other people think, even if you think it's the opposite of what you believe, because you'll take something from it. Be a sponge and take that learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, mate. That was a great sign off. I think we could just end it there. But I really do appreciate you coming on. I hope your event goes really well this evening.
Thanks, lads.
And yeah, don't be a stranger.
Awesome. Pleasure.
Thanks,
you.
buddy. Cheers.